The night I realized my brother wasn't protecting me anymore, I didn't scream, I froze. I'm sitting in a wooden chair now, the same one I've owned longer than most of my memories, and when I look back, I understand why. Some shocks don't hit loud, they settle. They rearrange your sense of safety without asking permission. My name is Ellie, and I grew up in New York. Not the shiny postcard version, just a regular neighborhood where people minded their business and families stayed behind closed doors. I lost my mom young, too young to remember her voice clearly, but old enough to remember the silence she left behind. After that, it was just my dad, my younger brother, and me. Back then, my brother was my shadow. He walked me to school. He waited outside classrooms. He stood a little too close when other boys talked to me. Everyone said I was lucky. He really looks out for you, teachers would say. That kid's a natural protector, neighbors joked. I believed them. I wanted to believe them. When our mom died, something hardened in him. He took responsibility seriously, too seriously. He started speaking for me before I could answer, deciding things I hadn't agreed to, watching who I talked to, asking where I was going. At first, it felt like care. That's the tricky thing about control. It wears the mask of love until you don't recognize it anymore. By the time I turned 20, things shifted. I felt it before I understood it. The way his eyes lingered, the way he followed me through rooms without saying anything. The way silence stretched too long when it was just us. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself grief messes people up. I told myself family is complicated. That was my mistake. The house felt different when my dad left for Canada on business. Not empty, tight, like the walls were listening, like every sound carried weight. I stayed in my room more, locked the door, kept to myself. One evening, I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, something was off. My room didn't look touched, but the air felt disturbed, like someone had been there too long. That's when I understood something had crossed a line. After that, nothing exploded. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting, just a quiet shift in power. He started making comments, small ones, threats disguised as reminders, looks that said, "You don't get to decide anymore." I stopped feeling safe in my own house. I didn't tell my dad, not because I didn't trust him, but because I knew he would choose silence, reputation, respect, the story that looks better from the outside. So I stayed quiet. And my brother learned something dangerous that year. That silence can be controlled. What I didn't know yet was how far he was willing to go to keep me trapped inside it. Silence didn't come all at once. It crept in, slow and heavy, like fog you don't notice until you can't see the road anymore. After that night, my brother didn't change his routine. That was the part that messed with my head the most. He still ate breakfast like nothing happened, still joked with my dad on the phone, still asked if I wanted coffee when he made some for himself. From the outside, everything looked normal. Inside the house, it wasn't. He started keeping track of me, not openly, never in a way I could point to and say, "That's it, that's the problem." It was subtler than that. He knew what time I left, what time I got back, who I talked to. If I stayed out later than usual, he'd mention it casually, like it was nothing. "Late night? Didn't know you were still seeing her. You should be careful who you trust." Always calm, always quiet. I started changing my behavior without realizing it. I stopped wearing certain clothes. I avoided certain streets. I made excuses to get home early, not because he told me to, but because I felt watched even when he wasn't in the room. That's how control works. You do the work for them. One afternoon, he cornered me in the kitchen, not physically, just with words. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, blocking the only exit without touching me at all. "You know Dad wouldn't handle stress well," he said. I didn't answer. "You don't want to be the reason things fall apart," he added. That was the first time he said it out loud. I felt my stomach drop. He didn't have to explain what he meant. The message was clear. Your silence keeps the family standing. Your voice destroys it. After that, the reminders came more often. Sometimes it was a look, sometimes a sentence dropped in passing, sometimes nothing at all, just the expectation that I knew better than to push back. And I let him think he was winning. My dad came back from Canada different, tired, preoccupied. I watched him closely, wondering if he noticed anything off. Sometimes I thought he did, sometimes I was sure he didn't. Either way, he never asked. I learned another lesson that year. Adults see what they want to see. Weeks passed, then months. I learned how to live small, how to make myself invisible, how to exist without taking up space. People at work said I seemed calmer. Friends said I was more focused. They didn't know calm can be a survival skill. Then one night, my brother said something that made my blood run cold. He smiled, just barely, and said, "You know, if you ever stop listening, things could get real uncomfortable for you." That was the moment I realized this wasn't temporary. This wasn't confusion. This was intentional. And what scared me most wasn't what he said next. It was what he started planning. I didn't fight him, not because I was weak, but because I was learning. That's something people don't understand about situations like this. Survival isn't loud, it's quiet math. You calculate risks, you count exits, you wait. My brother got careless once he thought he had me boxed in. Control does that to people, it makes them sloppy. He started testing how far he could go. Not physically, never that obvious. It was psychological, strategic. He'd say things like, "Dad's been stressed lately," or, "People talk more than you think." He'd remind me how small mistakes turn into big problems when stories get twisted. Then came the leverage. One evening, he sat across from me at the kitchen table, scrolling through his phone like he was bored. He didn't look up when he spoke. "You ever think about how easy it is to misunderstand things?" he said. I felt my chest tighten. "What things?" I asked. He turned the phone toward me, just enough for me to see. A picture, innocent by itself. Me leaving the house late. Me talking to someone outside. Moments taken out of context. "You don't want to be the girl people ask questions about," he said, "especially Dad." That's when it clicked. He wasn't just controlling me anymore. He was building a narrative. I didn't react. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I nodded. I stayed calm. I played the role he expected, the scared sister, the quiet one, the one who'd do anything to keep the peace. Inside, I was memorizing everything. What he said. When he said it. How often. What he thought he had on me. I started writing things down, but not in a notebook. Too obvious. I used notes apps with fake titles. Emails to myself that looked like grocery lists. Dates, times, patterns. Because silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it means preparation. My dad stayed distant. Work, bills, exhaustion. Life gave him plenty of reasons not to look too closely, and my brother took full advantage of that. He played the good son, the responsible one, the man of the house. I watched him lie without blinking. There was one night I almost broke. I sat on my bed, phone in my hand, ready to call my dad into the room and tell him everything. My finger hovered over the screen. Then I heard my brother's voice in the hallway. Laughing, relaxed, confident. That confidence told me everything I needed to know. If I spoke too soon, he'd twist it. He was already ahead of me in people's minds. I needed proof, not emotion, not fear. Evidence. So I waited. And that waiting changed me. Because while my brother thought he was tightening the cage, I was learning exactly where the locks were. People think the hardest part is speaking up. It isn't. The hardest part is knowing when to speak. I waited until my brother made one mistake too many. Control makes people predictable. He started repeating himself, reusing threats, leaning on the same pressure points like they'd never wear out. That's when I knew he thought I was finished. The opportunity came quietly. My dad asked us both to sit down one evening, nothing serious, just one of those tired, end-of-day check-ins families pretend are normal. My brother played his role perfectly, calm, helpful, concerned. I let him talk. Then, when the room settled into that familiar silence, I spoke. Not fast. Not emotional. Just clear. I didn't accuse. I didn't rant. I didn't beg to be believed. I asked questions. I asked my brother why he kept records of my movements. Why he felt the need to protect me from stories that never existed. Why he believed fear was the same thing as loyalty. Then I showed what I had. Dates. Messages. Patterns. Proof of pressure, not one moment, but months of it. My dad didn't interrupt. He didn't yell. He didn't defend anyone. He just listened. That silence, the one my brother had weaponized, finally turned on him. I watched his confidence collapse in real time, his explanations tangled, his calm cracked. For the first time, he wasn't ahead of the story anymore. Nothing dramatic happened after that. No shouting, no police lights, no public spectacle. Just consequences. Boundaries were set, space was created, and for the first time in years, I slept without locking my door. Life didn't magically fix itself. Trauma doesn't disappear because the truth comes out, but something shifted inside me. I stopped shrinking. I stopped living quietly to keep other people comfortable. Years passed. Now I'm older, slower, quieter in a different way. I sit in this wooden chair most afternoons, sunlight coming through the window the same way it always has. The house is calm, not tense, not heavy, just calm. People ask me sometimes why I don't talk about the past more. I smile and tell them this: silence isn't weakness. It's a tool. And when you choose it, when you hold it until the right moment, it can become the loudest truth in the room. I didn't lose my voice. I learned how to use it. And I waited until it couldn't be ignored.